So homework, going over Hank Aaron, all the way up through making a box plot. So what do I need to know about those numbers? Where do I start? So what do I need to know about those to be able to do my first thing? How many there are? How many of them are there? 21. They are already what? They're already in what? They're already in order for us. I don't know what I said yesterday. 21 plus 1, 22, 22 divided by 2. What do I do with 11? Circle that number. So in order, the 11th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Are y'all with me that 38 is the median? Alright, so here's where we were yesterday, making sure we understand. So that is my median. But that splits my data. But what's the important thing that you need to remember? Don't include that in either half. And now when I start explaining it, when I teach it at first, I'm going to draw a separate box. Now, are some of you going to waste your time to draw a separate box? No, that's fine. I don't care. So how many numbers should be in each one of these boxes? If this is the 11th, that means how many should be in each box? 10. So 10 plus 1, 11. 11 divided by 2. 2, 4, 5. So what is our Q1? 28. Which I should do the same math here, so it's between 5th and 6th. I did not ask you to do this, but just as a review, if I say what is the 5-number summary for this data, what's the first number you would tell me? 13. 28. 38. 36. Now, if I ask you on a test or a quiz, what is the 5-number summary, and I don't give you a problem, what would you write here instead? Minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and max. What is, if I ask you IQR on a test or quiz, I want to see this. I want to see the generic equation, which is what? What is my Q3? Minus, which gives me so I've got my 5-number summary. I could, for the most part, graph, but I need to do what? Check and make sure for outliers. What do I write next? Q1 minus 1.5 times IQ1. So now I'm just filling in. My Q1 is? My IQR was? 16. So we already did that yesterday with the math. They end up both being 16. So 24. So this gives me? Yes or no? No. Why? None below is fine. This is just being a little bit more specific. I told y'all none below is fine. But tell me, don't just say none. I want to know why none. Either put less than here or say none below. So I'm doing basically the same thing, except here it's starting with Q3 and it's what in between? So my Q3 was what? 44? So 44 plus 24 gives me? Yes, no? This doesn't happen much, but every once in a while it does. I am specifically saying what inequality-wise here? So what am I not saying? Less than or equal to, so would 4 be an outlier? technically no by those rules. Sometimes people get a little bit funny about it, but technically by the rule, no. So this just means that when we do our box plot, our lines go all the way from the box to the minimax. So if you didn't graph it yet, whether you did or didn't, this is my graph from yesterday that I had no labels on. This is Barry Bonds. So what we can do here is come out to the side and say that this one is for Barry Bonds. And then graph Hank Aaron's on that same graph, just right above or below it.
Does it matter if we just make this one?
I just want you to see that you can do it together. I know some of y'all just started writing and ran out of space, and that's fine, I don't care. So my vertical lines are at what numbers?
13.
What was this number, 16?
Yeah.
So when I'm grading things, I am most, like I tell you, I'm not gonna get out my ruler, but I'm gonna look at things like relative to each other. Your line for 13 should not pass your line for 16. What's my next number? 28 and 44. Is that right? And my box ended up getting a little bit bigger than the other one. They should be the same size, like same height box.
That wouldn't be the box.
I'm not doing the right numbers. Is that right?
Yeah.
This one shouldn't be a number?
Yeah. That should
Okay.
be done.
So my vertical lines should be, what's my first one? 28, and then what?
38.
38 and 44?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so then my dot, you said, should be at what? 13, which is below 16, and then my dot should be at,
47.
and this dot was at 49, or this end was at 49. So again, like I said yesterday, I don't really care about the dot versus the star or nothing. When I draw mine, most of the time, I do it like this, and mine don't have dots or anything unless it needs to be an outlier, because some people make their dots so big that it kind of takes up so much room. You're not going to get more out of it if you do dots as opposed to if you don't. I don't care if you do or don't. But just don't make your dots like this big. So let's talk about, well, let's add our labels first. What should be down here? And this was not included in the problem, but I think it should be.
Okay, Caesar.
But I think the problem should have told us that part. And then I would probably do box plot of home runs per season. For Hank Aaron versus Barry Bonds. Alright, so let's think about, most people think a stem plot or stem and leaf plot, whatever, is a stupid graph that is not very helpful. I always hear people say stuff like that. But they like box plots. Which is actually better, a stem plot or a box? Let me tell you, if you take the perspective of saying a stem plot is better than a box plot, so stem plot being better than a box plot, why would someone say that a stem plot is better than a box plot?
Easier to tell the shape.
It could definitely be easier to tell the shape. What else?
You could see patterns
Why? Why it said you can see patterns, but why? What do you not see in this? What do you not see in this? The actual values. So it loses the individual values when you go to a box plot. Now, if I put those box plots there, is it really easy to compare those two? Yes. So benefits would be like comparing them, but you lose the individual values of each, or the value of each individual. So it's a little bit of a give and take there. That's something that comes up in like multiple choice questions sometimes, about the fact that you lose individual values in a box plot, whereas something like a stem plot or a dot plot. Do we do another graph? Bar graph from where we are right now? I don't want to answer that one. So like some of them can retain individual values and some of them do not. What would be the shape of Hank Aaron? Slightly left skewed, which means what? Context.
There's more high values.
Okay, and then use specific numbers to support. There are more often high values around.
Between like 35
And you could even say 40s, like you don't have to be super, super specific. Just talk about where that peak would be. Around the 40s with less frequent as the number of home runs per season decreased. Moving left, that makes sense. Who's better, Barry Bonds or Hank Aaron? I would probably say Hank Aaron. But this is one that would be a question. We're going to get to this. This would be a compare question as opposed to a describe question. Obviously, that one outlier makes Barry Bonds look better. But you could say things like the upper 50% or the top 50% of Hank Aaron's are higher than the top 50% of Barry Bonds. You can talk about the specific number of the median. I don't want to get too far into compare yet. Outliers for Hank Aaron, yes, no? No, so you would say what? Context. There are no seasons where there were significantly uncharacteristically high or low number of home runs per season in relation to the rest of the seasons. Our center is what? For Hank Aaron? The only center we found? 38, which means
There's the same number of values.
about 50% of the time he scored below, less than 38 per season, about half the time he scored above. And then spread, you could technically talk about either one. Which one would be a better measure of spread to use? I prefer you to always use interquartile range over range unless there's a reason. Because it's the 1 point can affect it can affect the range, whereas you need a bulk of them to get to the interquartile range.
Is like 16.
So the interquartile range is 16. So we say what? What does that box represent? Middle 50%. So the middle 50% of his seasons, he scored within what? 16 home runs of the other seasons. Makes sense. We're going to get really specific about compare. I want to kind of keep rolling for today. All right, so I gave you notes that say histogram in front of you.